All right, we are back. It is 8:10 this morning, 10 minutes past the top of the hour, and we have Common Sense Matters.
And I'm Betty Fraley, and I have a few announcements to make before we get into their literature or our program. And you know, we have never asked for sponsors, but we would welcome anyone who would be willing to sponsor Common Sense Matters. And I also want to talk about this evening is the drug court graduation, May the 24th, in the General Sessions Courtroom at 6 o'clock. If at all possible, I plan to be there. And you know, it's such a good thing for you to see and witness. So if you can possibly be there, do that. On June the 2nd, there will be a state training in McMinnville for any Democratic person who is running in this election, and you are welcome to go. It's a long day. It's from 9 to 5, but it's very, very informational, and you would gain a lot from going. The number of the state party is 615-327-9779. On June the 16th, the Democratic Party meets at the Annex. We are planning a social for June the 23rd in the park. Where in the park? Is it the Red Roof Pavilion or the other?
I believe it's Red Roof.
We are planning a family event with all candidates on June the 23rd, so we certainly would welcome your being there. I also wanted to talk about the ballot. I don't want you to be confused when you vote on August 2nd. On August 2nd, there will be two elections. There will be a county election, a local election. There will also be a state Democratic primary and a state Republican primary. In the general election, you do not have to ask. You do not have to state if you're a Democrat or Republican. You'll be voting for David Alexander, Eddie Clark. You'll be voting for Lydia Curtis Johnson is not opposed. You'll be voting for the sheriff. And there's one thing I'd like to call your attention to on that ballot. The party that is in power has their candidate listed first. And I looked at this, and most of the time it has worked out that the candidate it winds up being alphabetical, except in the sheriff's race, Paul Sweeten is listed first instead of Tim Fuller. So the S comes before the F because he's a Republican running against Tim Fuller. So that will be a local election. You'll vote for all your commissioners and the county clerk, the county court clerk, the register of deeds, and the road commissioners and constables. So that is the general election. But then when you vote in the state primary, you will have to state whether you're a Democrat or Republican. And by the way, I want to tell you that I am running for the executive committee woman, and I would certainly appreciate your vote. I do have opposition, and guess what? My name is the very last name listed on the state primary. So I'm the very last one on. So don't leave the ballot until you voted for me, and I surely would appreciate your vote. So that's about. I believe that about winds it up. But if you have any questions about the ballot, either call here or call the election office, which is 967-1893. But I don't want you to be confused on election day. I want you to realize that there are two elections, and you need to vote in both elections. But let me just emphasize the fact that you need to vote. You definitely need to vote. So please go vote on August 2nd. And I believe Nancy is going to... is that all I was supposed to do, Nancy, right now? You're going to read?
I believe you covered it. You covered drug court tonight,
yeah.
6 o'clock, I believe.
Yeah, it is 6 o'clock.
I've heard that's going to be special. So come to drug court graduation down at the Judicial Center, in Judge Ferris's courtroom. I think it's courtroom C down there. You'll be moved, and you just need to come.
And now, today, our topic is politics and religion, and how can you possibly be involved in politics and religion at the same time. But let me tell you that when my husband was in office, it enhanced my Christianity in that I've always liked to help people, and I've helped an awful lot of people. But it meant then that I had access, or he had access, to state agencies and federal agencies that could help people even more. I think in the 14 years he was in the state legislature, I only was able to assist 3 people on getting on disability, but I wouldn't recommend anybody for disability who didn't really deserve it. A 52-year-old man had cancer, his business had closed, it wasn't his business, but the place he worked had closed, he's between jobs, he only lived to draw 2 disability checks. But another person had a massive heart attack, and another person had worked all of her life and had MS, and I was able to help them get disability, and was glad to do that. But then, so his agencies, or his access to agencies, helped us help a lot of people. And so Christianity and politics certainly have gone together in that case with me. And Nancy has some scripture to read, I think.
Before I read Matthew 25, it's sort of lengthy, and y'all know what it is. It's helping the least of these. But I'll say amen to what Betty just said. Being in public service is just a great way to help people. And of course, when you're in those positions, you take an oath to do certain things. Raise your right hand. Just about everybody does, I think, from constable on up to Supreme Court justice. But you have to comply with the law and fulfill your responsibilities. Mine was circuit court clerk. And there'll be laws and there'll be rules and things that you disagree with. You may have a moral opposition to something. But it was simple for me. I learned to just actually default to what I thought Jesus would do, because I'm very fortunate. I was raised in a very ultra conservative Marble Plains Methodist church, taught by very ultra conservative teachers, and lots of stories about Jesus. So I never really had much of a problem making decisions and dealing with hard things. But Betty and I wanted to especially read Matthew 25 this morning. It's sort of lengthy, but it just says a lot what we as Democrats stand for, and I'm sure a lot of other people do too. Matthew 25, I'll just start at verse 31. When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit up on the throne of his glory. And before him shall be gathered all the nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came unto me. Then shall the righteous, mind you, answered him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee hunger and fed thee, or thirsty and gave thee drink? When saw we thee a stranger and took thee in, or naked and clothed thee? Or when saw we thee sick or in prison and came unto thee? And the king shall answer and say unto them, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, ye have done it unto me. Then shall he say also unto them on the left hand, Depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and ye gave me no food. I was thirsty, and ye gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me not in. Naked, and ye clothed me not. Sick, and in prison, and ye visited me not. Then shall they also answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee hungry, or athirst, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not minister unto thee? Then shall he answer them, saying, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye did it not to one of the least of these, ye did it not to me. And these shall go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. Okay, Betty.
I have an article here from February the 21st, 2013. This is an old article, but it tells why so many of us are Democrats, and this is written by Roy Herron. Roy Herron is an ordained Methodist preacher. He was a state senator. He was at one time chair of the state Democratic Party, and he just lists several reasons that he is a Democrat, and it goes along with so many of us who are also Democrats. I'm a Democrat because I believe in Jesus' golden rule, do unto others as you would have others do unto you, instead of the politicians' golden rule. Those with the gold make the rules. I'm a Democrat because John 3:16 teaches, For God so loved the world, not just the powerful or the powerless, nor just those who look like us or think like us, but the whole world. And I'm a Democrat because John 3:16 teaches, we know love by this, that He laid down His life for us. I'm a Democrat because I believe Americans are family, and because of what Americans have done for my family. And of course, not just his family, but many of our families have profited from these programs. I'm a Democrat because when in World War II my father was gravely wounded, programs passed by Democrats saved his life with medical care, and the GI Bill helped that disabled veteran rehabilitate, attend a university, and learn a profession. And my family certainly has profited from the GI Bill. My husband had 2 years of college before he went into the Air Force. When he came back, of course, he finished on the GI Bill. My son had a degree when he went into the service, but after he got back from the Middle East, he got his master's with the GI Bill. And you could go on and on. Most of your families have somebody who has profited from that program. I'm a Democrat. This is, again, Roy Herron. I'm a Democrat because my father, as a judge, taught me that politicians should not limit people's access to the courts, citizen juries, and justice, but there should be personal responsibility for all and immunity for none. I'm a Democrat because as the husband of one of the first female graduates of Vanderbilt Law and Divinity Program and the first female attorney in private practice in our county, I know Democrats created equal access to opportunities for our wives, sisters, and daughters. I'm a Democrat because I know many seniors who survive on Social Security, and my mother lived to be nearly 96 with health care provided by Medicare, programs created and protected by Democrats. I'm a Democrat because I believe in the work my engineer brother, nephew, and niece have done in Democratic-sponsored research and development projects that help make America the most advanced, strongest, and most secure country on earth. I'm a Democrat because Dr. Sal Lombardi, a Nashville high-risk pregnancy specialist, saved our twin sons with expertise gained from teachers, schools, and hospitals, all made possible by Democratic-created programs. I'm a Democrat because I believe in the work my sister did as a special education teacher with children she helped make taxpayers instead of tax takers. I'm a Democrat because Jesus taught in Matthew 25 that nations will be judged by how they treat the least of these. I'm a Democrat because the Hebrew laws, the 8th century prophets, Jesus' teaching, and the apostle preaching all require us to seek justice, do mercy, and love our neighbors. In a time when we have gone from common sense to nonsense, it's past time we return to values America has held dear. In our American family, we have many faiths, but our shared values and my own tradition led me to the Tennessee Democratic Party. And then I'd just like to reiterate some of the things that the Democrats have done that have helped the least of these. For working men and women, a 40-hour work week in 1936, abolition of child labor, the Fair Labor Standards Act, 1938, Family and Medical Leave Act, 1994, minimum wage law, 1938, and we continue to try to increase the minimum wage, collective bargaining, National Labor Relations Act, 1935, and for senior citizens, certainly Social Security in 1935 and Medicare in 1965, and Older Americans Act of 1965. For low-income people, Medicaid, 1965, Head Start, 1965. For veterans, and I've already talked about that, the GI Bill of Rights, which gave them free college education, insurance, and assistance with home ownership. For a more equal America, Civil Rights Act, 1964, Voting Rights Act, 1965, and Women's Right to Vote in 1920. Now, that's just personal things. That doesn't include infrastructure or the Main Street to Wall Street program and all that. This is just that assisted you and me. This is, of course, I have Medicare and I have Social Security and don't know what I would do without the two of them. There's a bill now to cut Medicare, and I pray every day that it will not be cut by like $800 billion or something like that. I have to have Medicare. I'm high maintenance. Anybody who is older is high maintenance, so I have to have Medicare. There's no way I could pay all my medical bill by myself. Okay, Nancy, you're on.
Just this morning, sort of going through my computer, looking for things that have happened and just learning what I could, I happened upon this article, and I bought a copy of it. And this just happened the last day or so. It says Jimmy Carter. It's from Christianity Today, by the way. It says Jimmy Carter at Liberty is 2018's most surprising yet hopeful commencement speaker. And, of course, this sets a tone if we could just all stop yelling at each other and beating each other over the head politically over our views and work toward the common goals that we should. It would be great. But I was touched by this Jimmy Carter and I believe it's Jerry Falwell Sr. This event. It starts out. I'm going to try to skip through and not read it word for word because it's lengthy. But it says former President Jimmy Carter has accepted an invitation to deliver the commencement address at Liberty University on Saturday. Many will view this announcement as surprising, some even as disappointing for one reason or another. I view it, the writer of this article said, I view it as hopeful. Carter, here's what he says, this writer. Carter is a progressive evangelical. The Falwell family and Liberty University identify with fundamentalist evangelism. Politically, Carter is generally liberal, while the Falwells are conservative. Historically, Carter and Liberty's late founder, Jerry Falwell Sr., had drifted sharply and personally on multiple issues, most notably civil rights and American defense of Israel. So why, in this current era of adversarial politics, in the state and even in the church, are the two contrasting forces coming together? It is less surprising that Carter is willing to accept the invitation than that Liberty chose to offer it in the first place. While the former president can be unflinching on what he views as absolute and moral principles, such as his opposition to racism, his career-long natural instinct has been to bring people together as much as possible. And it mentions Israeli Prime Minister and President Anwar Sadat in 1979. To work cooperatively with a broad range of evangelicals in achieving common evangelistic and social justice goals would not normally be difficult for Carter. By contrast, fundamentalists, almost by definition, are more or less separatists. But Jerry Falwell Sr. modified that separatist mentality by entering the political arena as the founder of the moral majority, which set out to influence the conservative social agenda. And then it goes on to tell about when he fired up his moral majority, We all know what happened next. The nation unexpectedly elected a Republican president who supported much of this conservative agenda that did not reflect the Christian virtues of moral purity and intellectual honesty in his personal life. I'll go ahead and skip over that and go down to, I like the end. Y'all can go to Christianity Today on your computers and find this. It'll pop right up, probably. It's Jerry Falwell Sr. said about, I believe in introducing President Carter, I was so impressed with the President's warmth, kind demeanor, and humility. It is one of the greatest honors of my life to welcome President Carter to our commencement stage. I have tremendous respect for him as a statesman and a true Christian. While Christians may disagree about what role government should play in serving those in need, the Liberty University community, along with all Christians worldwide, are united in the belief that we as individuals should provide food and shelter to the poor. President Carter, both during his time in office and since, has followed the teachings of Christ by serving the poor and loving his neighbors. I am thrilled that he will be sharing the glory of his life of faith in action to our graduates and families. And I believe that's still a quote from Jerry Falwell Jr. And then this article ends, there must be a lesson here for all Christians. And remember, our program today that Betty Fraley and I are tackling is religion and politics. It's possible. It's possible. You know, you'll hear the saying religion and politics don't mix. They probably should. We should have religion, a religious background in everything we do, and we have to deal with politics. Politics just, it rules us out there. That politicians make rules that we have to live by. But anyway, this writer says there must be a lesson here for all Christians. It's time for us to put biblical principles at the center of our approach to political clashes and remember. The kingdom of God is above all human institutions, including political ones. Number two, he says other things, but I'm trying to shorten it. Number two, as Christians, it is up to us to exercise kindness in the midst of intense debate. Kindness is missing. Kindness and understanding, to me, is missing too much out there in our conversations. Number three, in our lives, we should advocate for the social principles we find in Scripture. And if you look that up, you'll see it's Mark 12:31, James 1:27, Matthew 25:35 to 36. I think that's what we just read. Romans 12:18. Vote for people. Now think, people, get out and vote. It's your duty to vote for people of ability, character, integrity, and goodwill. Then expect those legislators, as much as possible, to apply their high values to the specific issues of the day. Ultimately, God is our truth. As it says in Jeremiah 29:13, ye shall seek me and find me, when ye shall search for me with all your heart. That's King James Version. The closer you come to truth, the closer you come to the mind of God. Okay, Betty, that does it for me for a while.
Well, I thought maybe you might talk about health care from the standpoint of Christianity.
Exactly. Of course, that's right in there with taking care of the least of these. No question about it. And I brought with me, when I opened my Bible this morning to look up our scriptures here, the Mother's Day offering fell out. Tennessee Baptist has Tennessee Baptist Children's Homes that take care of disadvantaged children. And on the Sunday before Mother's Day, we were reminded that our Mother's Day offerings go to Tennessee Baptist Children's Homes. And on this little insert that was in our bulletin, it says, religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this, to look after orphans and widows in their distress. And then it also says, Jesus commands us to care for the least of these. Tennessee Baptist Children's Homes provide safe, loving Christian homes to children from hard places, which, of course, my mind is on insurance a lot, because I am still hurt by and don't understand why Christian legislators cannot find it in their hearts to, without cost to them, provide insurance for poor people, for everybody, including children. So yes, that insurance is big. I'll go back and really remember my own oath that I had to take as circuit court clerk, because I was serious. I wanted to do what I was supposed to do when I got there, and I found out it was a lot harder than I thought it would be too. But the oath that the General Assembly people take has in it, among other things, to act without prejudice and without favor to any person. It says, and not to do anything, pass any act or resolution that is injurious to people. And of course, our legislators there now, to me, have done and are doing that very thing in denying insurance and not only hurting the people involved, but society as a whole and all the people that are dealing with addictions, mental health issues, all the problems that come from those that could be helped with people having access to insurance.
And this cut in Medicare that is proposed right now, I left out the fact that the children are also covered by Medicare. So when that's cut out, then that's going to mean that the Baptists are going to have to take a bigger collection to help the children. But any orphan's home or any group of children that is not covered, then Medicare is what they use for children also. Is that not true, Nancy?
They use, of course, there's children in households up to a certain income in Tennessee get TennCare, which is Medicaid. But if the income goes, I think it's above 250% for the household, they get Cover Kids, and that comes from the federal government. And that's what you've heard of. It's a special program that was passed back in 1997, as I say, by Congress, United States Congress. And I think they even recently took money from Cover Kids. They were to use the money. They were saying that it was excess money that wasn't being used, but it was there as a safeguard for a purpose. That's children. That's dealing with children's health care. It just kind of blows my mind that they would do that.
And because of that, we are losing hospitals. Tennessee has lost more rural hospitals than any other state other than Texas, because they refuse to accept the Medicaid expansion thing. The Tennessee legislature sends $1.4 billion of our tax money to other states. We've sent over $5.6 billion of our money to states that have expanded Medicaid. These states are using this money to make health care better in their states. If we expand Medicare, we can protect Tennessee rural hospitals, create Tennessee jobs, make health care accessible to over 280,000 Tennesseans. Now just think about depriving 280,000 people in Tennessee of health care, and just think how many of those will die and have died because we did not do that.
Right, and several, I think it's up to, about 9 now, maybe rural hospitals have had to close, and that deprives everybody in those communities of a hospital close by. And there should be a hue and cry out there. People should be just raising Cain with your legislators, or Tennessee legislators that are doing this. And that another big reason, a lot of you already have your minds made up. You're going to vote the way you vote, and we can't change it. But to those of you out there that are listening that are not voting, please go out, go vote, and vote for people who will do what they're supposed to do and provide benefits for the people that need it.
Just turn this around, and what if this much money was sent to we had this much money available in the state of Tennessee to help farmers? say that farmers had a drought or whatever, and our state legislature did not accept that money, they sent it for other states to use. There wouldn't just be an outcry from farmers, there would be an outcry from the citizenry. We would all be up in arms about it because that's where we get our food. So it just does not make sense to me that they could do that at the expense of, now none of the farmers are going to die, they're not going to starve to death, but some of these 280,000 without health insurance died because this was sent somewhere else. Governor Haslam even proposed expanding Medicaid, and he regrets very much that it hasn't happened, but he was not able to get it passed.
Right. His Insure Tennessee was a hot topic there for, well, a couple of years, and we don't hear it talked about anymore. But it's politics. It is politics, and the folks that are in there now that are doing that are voting the way they vote. Surely they've got to care. Surely they care for these people that need health insurance. But what's coming first, what they're putting first, is their allegiance to whoever they're getting their money from. And back when the committee first killed Governor Haslam's Insure Tennessee in 2013, I believe, January 2013, this committee that killed it, there was a group that took credit for swaying them to kill it. That was, and there was no secret about it, that were an arm of the famous, wealthy, billionaire Koch brothers who hated Obama. And, of course, that was a reason also that they voted against it. There was such hatred for President Obama, and it was referred to as Obamacare, along with threats from that organization.
The Heritage Foundation.
Heritage, yeah, I couldn't think of it.
The
I was struggling.
Foundation.
That they would primary him if they dared vote for Insure Tennessee. And that shouldn't happen. That should not happen. But it did, and it is.
That's for them with the gold rule. It's like Roy Heron said in his article, not the golden rule, but them with the gold rules. And that is a shame that happens. And we're gonna, sadly, on insurance, I read, and I almost just don't want to read it when I see it. The present administration in Congress, in our United States Congress, well, it's actually, I think, our president and his administration, they are in fact doing everything they can to kill off the Affordable Care Act. It's not Obamacare. It would be fine with me if he wants to come up with Trump Care, something that would be helpful to people. But we're not in an open enrollment period right now for the insurance. It'll start November 1st, but people have special enrollment periods for different things that happen. And I read where more and more they're making it harder for people to get insurance. He's determined to do away with it. And it's people can do something about that by voting. And guess what kind of insurance they have? You and I pay for their insurance on the state level and the federal level. They have wonderful insurance. How in the world can they not want us to have? I mean, I have insurance, but poor people who do not have insurance, how in the world can they not want them to have access to affordable health care? I don't see how any Christian could not want everybody to have, anybody who professes Christianity, would not want everybody to have access to affordable health care.
If you go to the drug court graduation tonight, you'll be moved, and it'll be a very rewarding thing to see the people. It's sad to know that they've gone through what they have, but the graduates are the ones that got through, and that is drug court is operated. Chancellor Jeff Stewart is the drug court judge. DA, Assistant District Attorney Steve Blunt is heavily involved in it. In fact, I think he's in charge tonight because Chancellor Stewart can't be there. But it's wonderful what those people do. It's also heartbreaking to know what they and their families have had to go through, and people are still having to do it, because most of those people, I guess all of them, have in fact been in jail, but got into drug court. They have to prove that they're eligible to get in, and access to health insurance would help that situation so much. And the money that we're paying, there is, Sheriff Fuller said one time that at least 50% of his inmates there had either mental health or drug addiction issues. Those people need help, and they can't get it. And taxpayers are paying to enlarge our jail instead of voting for the right people.
Yeah. I worked at the jail for 7 years, and Nancy, of course, did also. Those people are there, most of them, because they made a mistake. They made poor judgment, in something. All they need is just a little bit of help, and if they're really, really serious about getting off drugs, they get in drug court. And drug court sees to it that they get off drugs. I mean, they are monitored just daily. They're going to get off drugs. They might not stay off, but they're going to get off drugs if they get in drug court. Drug court is a wonderful, wonderful program. Also, the program that Christine Hopkins has is a wonderful program.
Yes.
This is a reentry program. That's where I worked and where Nancy worked. Those people have to have help and strength to get back into society. They cannot go back to the very same environment that they came from. I recommended anybody who did not have a felon, I recommended that they go into service, that they enlist in a branch of the service. They wouldn't take them if they had a felon. But just think that would get them out of their environment, and then they would be in a regimented place so that they would get off drugs. This is what they need, and they need encouragement from the community. But if you're free tonight at 6 o'clock, I've been to those graduations, and you better take you a Kleenex, because I want to tell you, it'll bring tears down your cheeks, not just to your eyes, to hear what some of those people and their families. See, this is a family thing, and their families have been through. It's just heart-wrenching to sit there and witness it. But everybody needs to witness it. I think I'm going to take my grandchildren tonight to see it, because they're 11 and 12 years old, and it's not going to be long until they're going to be exposed to the possibility of drugs, and so I think I'm going to take them to see it. I think it'd be a good idea. Yeah, a good education for them.
It sure would. Yes. I ran across a little poem. I'm going to do like Bob Peters and read a poem. He in his programs reads poem. This one is very short, but I like it. I really like it. A judge read this at I won't call it a meeting, at a event about 2 years ago, and it's by Edwin Markham. I hadn't heard of him before, Edwin Markham. And he says, here's the poem: he drew a circle to shut me out, heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle and took him in. And that just really, when you, of course, all of us ought to have the love to draw a circle around those that are different from us and
less fortunate.
And less fortunate, exactly. But it actually reminded me, Betty, of what the Democratic Party does. We take in everybody.
Right.
We don't discriminate against or mistreat people that are different from us, and that, I guess that's what I like about the Democratic Party as much as anything. I don't have to twist myself into some sort of ideological thinking, to believe what I do. It's just simply being human and caring about other human beings, and if we'll just do that and not get all twisted up in politics. We need to put our own humanity
before.
And think, I honestly do this. I can't say it too much. I honestly, many times, just have to think, what would Jesus do in this situation? I think it came from, several years ago, the kids would wear the little WWJD. What would Jesus do? And you just really think what Jesus would do. And since I was in my Bible this morning, we were having Bible study here today, somehow I got to, talking about the law, I think about this because this reminded me of the law is the law. Jimmy Carter said about abortion that, well, I'm against abortion, but I have to comply with the law, and that's what we do. But I guess that's what reminded me of against such as there is no law. This is in Galatians 22, and of course it has to do with what the Holy Spirit. Christian character is produced by the Holy Spirit. We might not can do this ourselves, but we ought to strive for it. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, self-control. Against such there is no law. There are lots of laws out there that we have to go by that we may not like. But if we will put our fellow human beings first.
And if I didn't think I could be into politics and be a Christian, I certainly would drop my politics.
Politics, right.
Because Christianity will save your soul and politics won't. But, I think that everybody should have an interest in what's going on around them. I knew a minister up in Centerville, and I cannot remember his name, but he survived in that congregation 40 years. His name was Paul somebody, and he headed every civic organization in that community. In addition to preaching, and he was involved in everything in the community. I think part of Christianity is being involved in some things. If it's something that you can't do, if it conflicts with your religion, no. But I think that everybody has a civic duty to be interested in what goes on around you. All politics is local. All politics is local.
Right. Well, and of course, what you said is absolutely true. Being in any kind of official capacity gives you the ability to be even more. It enhances your ability to help people.
Right.
I loved what I could do in the circuit court clerk's office. I am so blessed now to get to work for Clinton Swafford because there's opportunities. Just being with people, there are opportunities there.
That's what
I reach
miss.
Out and right.
That's what I miss about being retired. A lot of students came to me for advice, and I always advise them from the standpoint of Christianity, certainly not from the standpoint of politics. But even parents of students came to me for advice, and I always advise them from the standpoint of Christianity. That's what we do.
Right, and I think, of course, we hear that, and we hear this on both sides. How can you be a Democrat and be a Christian? Maybe I've even heard, how can you be a Republican and be a Christian? I don't judge anybody else's Christianity. That's one reason I don't think we should judge other people harshly. That's another reason we love and take everybody in. You just do it. Our pastor, Brother Jason Faulkner, preached Sunday on one thing. God wants us, is continually wanting to make us like Jesus. And if you just think, if you want to be like Jesus, just think what he taught and his examples, and that can't be wrong. You just can't go wrong if you default to Jesus.
But I do think too that it's wrong to mix politics with religion. I would not appreciate, and this has certainly not happened, but I certainly would not appreciate my preacher telling me how to vote or something
Oh,
like that.
right, exactly.
But that certainly has never happened. But I certainly would not appreciate it if it tried to.
Right, that's going a bit far.
That's right.
But nothing wrong with being like Jesus.
Absolutely not. And as a Christian and as a Democrat, I have had access to federal and state agencies when my husband was involved in politics. My office that I will hold, if I get elected, pays no money, has no clout, maybe a little bit of clout, but certainly pays no money. I'll be a committee woman, a Democratic state committee woman, in the event that I get elected. But I don't get any money for it. In fact, it's very costly to serve.
Yes,
I'm glad to serve because I represent 7 counties. I represent not Moore County or Lincoln County, but this Franklin County, Coffee County, Squatchy County, Van Buren County, Marion County, and what else? That's about it, I guess.
I believe that's it.
Yeah.
It's
if that is 7.
Saying it's the senatorial. It's the what? 16th.
Senatorial.
It's the 16th senatorial district. Is what it is.
And my job in that capacity, I didn't say that, but my job is to support people who are running for office, which I do, and recruit people who are running to run for office, which I do all the time. And then, of course, I attend meetings in Nashville. I'm old, but I ain't dead.
Oh, listen, Betty is my inspiration when I think sometimes I'm too old to do this, you know. I think of Betty, what she does, and keep on trucking. Somebody needs to do it.
Well, I'm just not ready to go home and sit down and wait to die.
No, you don't. No, when Clinton Swafford called me, well, it's last year sometime, and asked would I be interested in working part-time, I said, I sure will, you know. So, and I love it.
I was at a luncheon with Clinton. I don't know if you heard him say this or not, but Clinton looked across the table at me and said, Betty, you just refuse to be a has-been, don't you?
Yeah.
And I don't want to be a has-been yet.
No, not yet. No.
Not yet.
Is it about time to wrap up? 2 minutes?
Okay, so then we have about 2 minutes left, and we certainly want to remind you to vote on August 2nd. Remember, it is 2 elections in one. It is a general election, and then a state Democratic primary where you will elect a person to run for governor against the Republican primary choice. So that will be, if I can find that, I'll tell you who that will be. The Republicans running for governor: Diane Black, Randy Boyd, Beth Harwell, Bill Lee, Basil Marco, I guess, and Kay White. So then, on the Democratic side is Carl Dean and Craig Fitzhugh and Mezianne Vale Payne. So you will be selecting one of these Republican people candidates for governor to run against the Democratic candidate for governor. So remember, it is a primary. It's not an election. It is a primary. But the general is an election. You will be actually electing a sheriff, and you will be actually electing a county mayor. But in the primary, it's just the primary. You're selecting who will run. So please bear that in mind. But whatever you do, go vote. Whatever you do, go vote.
Right.
Again, remember the drug court tonight at 6 o'clock. Remember our meeting on June the 16th, that morning at 9 o'clock in the annex. Remember, we will also have a family outing in the park, and I believe it's at the Red Roof Pavilion, on June 23rd with all the candidates, and everybody's invited.
All right, is that all?
That's all for today. Thank you.
Thank you,
Didn't
ladies.
have any call-ins.
That was Common Sense Matters, and you are listening to WCDT AM 1340, W295, AVFM 106.9 in Winchester. Good morning.